Tony, Philip Naylor from Cartmels and Bransford, the engineering and IT group. Well, you can say a bit about what your business does, Philip, but also your expertise in the early stages of design and business development.
Yes, I work with startups and big businesses as well, so it's quite a range.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, so I basically work with inventors to protect their inventions with patents. So day to day, I'm obtaining patents on behalf of clients, whether that be big businesses like Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Spotify, and smaller startups as well that I do work for. So I'm a bit conscious of time, but I'll kind of whiz through the general gist of what a patent is to give you guys a better idea. So what is a patent? What can you patent? Why would you want one? And how do you get one? That's the four main things we're going to be talking about. So what is a patent? It's an exclusive right for an invention. So it basically allows you to stop other people using your invention. It doesn't give you the right to use your own invention, because you could put your product out on the market and you might actually be infringing somebody else's patent. But it allows you to stop somebody else doing something. And yeah, they're generally granted for products and processes, and it has to be new, so it has to be different to what has gone on before, and it has to be non-obvious in its differences. I'll come on to that a little bit later. So I don't know whether any of you have seen a patent, but I just thought it would be useful to show you what one looks like. So you've got this front page, and that has, you know, the filing date, the owner of it, the inventors, all of those kinds of details. And then the next few pages is a description of what the invention is. It's a bit like that, lots of writing. And then at the back, there's figures that will help to support the detailed description to explain what it is that the invention is. But the most important part of it is the claims. And the most important claim is the first claim, which is a sentence that defines the invention. So when we're talking about infringement or whether somebody infringes, if this sentence describes what somebody else is doing, then they're infringing. If this sentence doesn't describe what someone else is doing, then they're not infringing. It's a very basic summary of what infringement is, but it does get a bit more complicated than that. So what can you patent? You've got apparatus, so physical products, hardware systems, computing devices, but you can also patent methods, so physical methods of doing things, manufacturing methods, and a mix of non-physical and physical methods, so computerized methods and physical methods in combination or on their own. So this is an example of something that was patented. It's now expired. It expired in 2017. But the title of the patent is a US granted patent. It's combining disparate purchases into a single purchase order for billing and shipment. So I was just going to wonder if anyone could hazard a guess at who owned this patent. Correct, Amazon. Well done. So this was the notorious one-click patent that they got granted, and it's been enforced for a number of years. And Amazon made a lot of money out of licensing this concept of the one-click purchasing method in the United States. So that was very lucrative for them over the years. This is another US patent, and the title of it is Methods and Systems for Providing Visual Content Editing Functions. So I'll explain a little bit how this works. So if you take a picture, the app will put a label on it that is indicative of where you are or the situation you're in. So if you're in at a football game, for instance, and you took a picture of the football game, the app would recognize that you might be watching a particular game and then tag it with that information. So can anyone hazard a guess at who owns this one? Correct. So these guys own it, but they didn't actually invent it and file it. So a company called Mobley did that, and Snapchat bought it off Mobley for $1.7 million. So that's how valuable certain inventions can be. Obviously, not all are going to get that price tag, but that's the kind of value that you can get from the patent, depending on how commercially valuable it is, of course, and the strength of the patent that you get granted. This is a European patent application, and this is what, this is what this company was seeking protection for when they filed their application. So you start off with a very broad claim of what you want to protect. So this is a computer implemented method for arranging transport. You allow a customer to provide their geographical location to a driver and they come and pick you up. Can anyone guess who owns this one? Yeah, we're on a roll. This is a great example of what people apply for patent applications for that isn't patentable. So this application was ultimately refused. This is a good example of what kinds of software are not patentable. So basically what Uber have done is to take your conventional mechanism for ordering a minicab, where you ring up a minicab company, you tell them where you are, and then a cab comes and collects you. So that was how people ordered minicabs, and still do to some extent, until Uber came along. But Uber's innovation is to implement that administrative process on conventional computing hardware, and that step in itself is not patentable in Europe, because they're essentially taking a business or an administrative process and they're implementing it on known computing technology. So I think that was what ultimately doomed this application to failure. But they have many other patent applications for other things, and this is an example of something else that they're trying to protect. So this basically is the pool method. So 2 people requesting a cab, and then Uber telling them the person to pick up first, and then the best direction to go in to pick up the next person, to then drop people off at all the locations they need to go. So this one is kind of a little bit, I mean, it hasn't been granted yet, but it's maybe has a bit more chance of success because it's a bit more of a development on top of the conventional minicab type ordering system. And you could argue that we've got some technical advantages here in that it could minimize fuel consumption for cabs and could make the process more efficient than having 2 cabs picking up 2 people and going to the separate destinations. So I still think this is going to be really hard for them to protect, but it's definitely on the grey area of what is patentable and what is not patentable. This is an example of a European patent application that our firm worked with SwiftKey to get granted, and it's to do with predictive text. So it's essentially using 2 different language models to help users be presented with better predictions for their text. So this is a granted application for that computer implemented method. So that's what you can get patents for, a few examples, but why would you want one? And these are the main reasons why clients come to us and ask us to get patents for them. So the main one is for investment for startups. Some investors are very keen on the startups that they invest in having an IP strategy, and hopefully patents should be a part of that if you're doing technological innovation. And once you have it, you've got an asset for the business, hopefully deter competition, and then you can enforce it if necessary if the deterrent hasn't worked. So it can defend your business in that way. Can assist you in commercial negotiations. For instance, if you're being purchased, your patent portfolio could be used to help support the value of the business. And there is something called Patent Box in the UK, so you can use granted patent applications to reduce your corporate tax being paid, which some people, investors are quite keen on that side of it. So this is the process for getting a patent. I don't know how clear this chart is, but generally we start off with a UK patent application. It's quite cheap, official fees to file it, and then that gives you a year in which you can file your application in other countries. And there are 2 mechanisms for doing that. So the first one is to file a Pct application, which is an international application, which basically buys you another 18 months to file in your countries that you're really interested in. So then at that 30-month stage, which is 12 months plus the 18 months, you then have to decide for sure which countries you're interested in. So typically people tend to go for particularly interested in, then they'd go to those patent applications at that stage. The alternative mechanism is to decide on your countries of interest at the 12-month stage, and people often don't do that because it's a very expensive part of the process. And doing it at the 12-month stage is often considered more of a risk than doing it later down the line. But some businesses know that their key markets are going to be Europe and the US, for instance, and they know for sure that they're not going to be interested in anywhere else. So, you know, then they think, why delay? So there are different options available for protecting your invention internationally. But while that's going on, you can have your UK patent application pending in tandem with the other applications to get you, and that will get you domestic protection through the UK patent. So two main things to watch out for. I think these have generally been touched on already, but if there's one thing to take away from today, don't publicly disclose your ideas without thinking about patent protection first. You might think about it and decide, I don't want it, and that's fine, but at least you've had that thought process. And also speak to a lot of inventors, and they kind of dismiss their ideas as being non-patentable, because they're, particularly in software, because they have this misconception that software is not patentable, so they don't apply for patent protection, but they speak to us later and they go, oh, actually, maybe we should have thought about it and sought protection for it before launching it. So yeah, those are the two main things to watch out for. And any questions?
Right.